Welcome to another Classic Car Club drive-through. One of my favorites, 1991 Acura NSX. We've had a couple of these. Always been a big fan. We had one in 2007, ran it for 3-4 years, sold it 2009, 2010. I think everyone had had their fill of it at that point, and we've had this resurgence over the past 4 or 5 years since then that everyone is excited about the NSX, and for good reason. It still stands the test of time. It is far and away one of the best sports cars we've ever owned. Maybe I'd even say top 5 cars we have. And if you want a pure sports car driving experience, it's really, really among the best. They didn't mess around with this car. You know, they were struggling with the chassis design, and then they brought Ayrton Senna in. There's a Honda racer at the time. Of course, everywhere else in the world, this is the Honda NSX, but here in America, we put it under our premium Honda brand, the Acura. They tuned the chassis with the help of Ayrton Senna around Suzuka. And 100% of it, the design went into making the car a better experience to drive, better handling. Literally every component of the suspension is trussed aluminum. You know, a control arm is like featherweight. Back in 1991, when they were developing this car, it was really like mid-late 80s. They were doing these super high-tech, lightweight suspension components. Get the unsprung weight down, you know, make it as agile and precise as possible. They even have a staggered wheel setup. You know, the front wheels are smaller than the back. You know, I'm a big opponent of large wheels. It's just adding unsprung weight, the worst kind of weight for your car for handling. So they kept the wheel package as small as they could. They also made the front wheels smaller than the back so that you could put the cab, you know, the cockpit forward more, get you more connected to the road without your feet getting jammed up by the wheels. That was what I believe, you know, was the criteria. They wanted to just be 100% about the driver. Dashboard is low, side low. Really, there's no other car you get in and sit in it and just feel like you're connected 100% of the road in front of you. That translates well in the driving experience too. Really mechanical. It's got manual steering, manual gearbox, naturally aspirated VTEC V6 motor. Not the most powerful thing in the world, but just a really sweet naturally aspirated motor. It has that VTEC cam, so it wants to rev, and when you get into the revs, you get a little extra push. Obviously, you know, analog sports cars these days, getting back to the few cars left with manual gearboxes, it's a big thing for enthusiasts, and a real connoisseur level car. It's perfect for the club. So let's get inside and see what it's like to drive. All right, inside the Acura NSX. First thing, right away you notice that you're in for a different experience. There's no other car I've been in where you have such a good view of the road. The dashboard is so low, it feels like it's just above my knees. Side's low, you've got lots of glass around you. You're really out here and engaged. You're pushed forward against the front wheels, and it just feels like you're 100% from the beginning set up to drive the car. Purposeful driving experience all the way through. The rest of it, yeah, there's a bit of quirks. You know, gas cap flap is here. The trunk button is on the door, and it is only a rear trunk in this. There is a compartment in the front, but it's full of like the spare wheel and other stuff. It's not really a place to put anything. So don't put ice cream in the back, you'll melt it, just like the new one. They kept that feature. But then when you get into actually driving it, sure, you get some kind of bulky 90s Japanese stocks for the lights and the blinkers and all that, but you've got a steering wheel, a gear shift, and 3 pedals, and that's really all you need. Not only is this car just back to basics, analog, you know, manual shifter, naturally aspirated motor. It's really sweet, high revving naturally aspirated motor. It doesn't even have power steering, you know, so you've got really direct, heavy steering, and it's really all down to you in the car. It's light, it's agile. I mean, actually the brakes sort of surprised me there, how quick they were. I was kind of geared up to have to slow down one of these bigger modern cars that we were driving, but you know, take away weight, even though the brakes aren't massive in this thing, and it stops on a dime. It really is still among the purest driving experiences you can have. With all the kind of added weight from airbags and sound deadening and everything that's going into newer cars, they're never going to be able to do this again. They're not going to be able to make a car this light, this focused on the driving experience. So they'll do everything they can to recreate it, but this is not going to be the same. This is 100% pure connection with you and the car and the road. I feel like these cars, in spite of their kind of thoroughbred history, where they've developed it with the greatest F1 driver maybe of all time at the wheel. They put all this energy and design into making the car lightweight and lower the unsprung weight. So, one of the first cars to have a full aluminum chassis. I feel like in its time, it didn't really get the credit it was due as a legitimate sports car. It was out there to beat Ferrari, and I think it did that. But then, there was a couple decades where it was floating around. They were not expensive. You could kids were picking them up instead of buying a new Civic, and they were just sort of this interesting Japanese experiment to make a Ferrari fighting car. Now, looking back, I think people are actually appreciating these cars a lot more because they do represent the kind of epitome of the analog sports car driving experience at a point where it's also new enough to be mated up with reliable technology. We've run a couple of these cars in the fleet. The last one I had, I doubled the mileage on it, and really all we did is a clutch and some oil changes. They're really well-built, reliable cars. Going through the revs back there, you could probably hear it, but as they hit around 5,000 RPM, the VTEC kicked in. Wow, that was a bald eagle. That was cool. VTEC kicked in, and the car kind of surged forward a bit more. You have that really nice linear, naturally aspirated thing, but when the cam shifts, you do feel it. And again, we're in an era where we just can't do this anymore. We can't make high revving, naturally aspirated motors. Everything's going turbo, smaller displacement, and they're getting good at it. You kind of can't complain the way they've tuned kind of variable turbos and variable cam timing. You can't really complain about lag anymore. You just get lots of low end torque. And the reality is, for the conditions we have to drive in, drive around town, that's probably fine. You don't get into the higher revs most of the time when you drive around town. But when you get out on some nice roads like this, and you can actually stretch the legs in the car, there's no replacement to having a car that you can really just run through all the revs and all the gears. It's just geared pretty tall too. We have a 5-speed gearbox now. The last car we drove, the new NSX, has 9 speeds, so you can really just kind of hang it out there in a gear and let it run through. Sweet. The last 3 minutes driving this car have probably been some of the best driving I've done in the past 2 years. And that's coming out of all these other cars. They're much more powerful. This thing is, around or less than 300 horsepower. We've got all these cars now that are 500 horsepower and greater. And if I do what I said there, step on the gas and run through the gears, I'd be flying along at like 100 miles an hour without enough road to enjoy it. I do it in this. I look down, I might have broke 65, 70, but I'm having way more fun. It's all about the kind of excitement and the thrill of driving, and this car, more than anything we've had, captures that.